Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. I'm your host today, BJ Cunningham. In just a second, I will be joined by my friend and co-host, Anthony DeBundo. But as a reminder, Wondergoal is proudly presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer. Bet $1 on any game, get $200 in bonus bets. Must be 21 years or older. Offers available in Colorado, New Jersey, Ohio, and Virginia in the United States. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, we're here. This is your Champions League and Europa League first leg of the semifinals betting preview. We're going to kick things off with a rematch of last year's semifinal. Real Madrid hosting Manchester City. Let's run through the futures odds really quick before we get started here. Manchester City is a minus 150 outright favorite to lift the trophy. Real Madrid is plus 333. Inter plus 650 and AC Milan at plus 850. This match, Real Madrid is plus 210 home underdog. Man City sitting at plus 120 with the draw sitting at plus 260. Man City is a minus 350 favorite to qualify, while Real Madrid is sitting at plus 250 at Bet365. This is a very interesting match, Anthony. And the way I see it, I'll let you get your thoughts in here first, but I think Real Madrid kind of needs to Real Madrid this thing if they want to get through both these legs, because City is looking pretty much unstoppable right now. So that means Real Madrid's got to be incredibly deadly in transitional opportunities, and their low block has to be effective when they're playing out of possession. But how do you see this first of two semifinals going?
Yeah, I've done a lot of thinking about this match. We kind of had a feeling it was coming pretty early once the way the quarterfinals played out, the first leg. And I thought a lot about okay, where's the market going to open? What's it going to look like relative to last year? And what's changed? Now, City closed right around plus 115 last year in the second leg at the Bernabeu, holding a 1-goal aggregate lead. And that match, City was the better side. They had a lot more of the possession, and then they completely collapsed in the second half. Really the last 15 minutes of the match, they kind of fell apart. But I think we need to realize that, how does this number make any sense? Because we had to throw out all priors, because I think I'm a little, we have a bias against Real Madrid for sure, because they've gotten so lucky for so long that I think we've maybe missed that they might be better this year, and they may have been a more solid team around the rest of kind of the squad. And I'm not really sure who's going to have more of the possession in this one, because City had 55% of the ball in the last meeting last year, but City have also been a little more willing to play off the possession this year. You saw that against Arsenal for parts of the match a couple weeks ago. You saw that against Bayern Munich. You saw that especially against Arsenal in the first meeting between the two of them. So Real Madrid is by no means like a possession dominant team, but they're certainly willing to have the ball. And so I think part of me thinks that Real will have more of the ball than maybe we think here. And I'll be looking to see if we get a prop. I love betting the possession props. I will be looking to bet a Real Madrid over, maybe say 46.5% if we get that number, because I really think that the market's a little lower on Real Madrid than I thought it was going to be coming in here. And I think it's more so that they're higher on City, because when I pull up La Liga numbers, I very rarely show value on Madrid. They haven't really been competitive in the league, but if you just look by raw expected goal differential, they have basically better numbers than last year, despite not getting the same level of production from Benzema that they got last year. I mean, Benzema's been worse. He's taken a step back, as we kind of expected, but they've supplemented it with an even better Vinicius season and more production from Rodrigo. He scores 2 in the cup final on Saturday. And I think Real's, they have defensive issues still. That's the thing that's kind of scary here. Without Militao, who's suspended, can they defend Haaland well enough if Haaland and De Bruyne do the similar type tactics they did against against Arsenal. So I've gone really back and forth on this a lot. Curious to get your thoughts, generally speaking, and then I'll kind of give a point on where I end up in this match.
Yeah, where I'm at right now is going into this. I was going to pass completely because I have City at plus 139. And now they've taken money, and now I'm getting to the point where maybe I would look at Real Madrid. But here's the thing that kind of worries me about Real Madrid. So, last season, especially in that first leg, it was the Vinicius Jr. match where, he cooked Fernandinho on the right. Well, if you remember that, Kyle Walker was injured going to that, and then John Stones got injured in what was it, around like the 20th minute, and then Fernandinho had to play out of position at right back, and then of course that's the clip that everybody shows. But if we go back, I mean, Manchester City scored 2 goals inside the first 15 minutes of that first leg, and there was this moment of panic for Real Madrid, and then they were much better in those transitional opportunities, and Benzema and Vinicius Jr. finished at ungodly rates. Now going into this one, the way City likes to set up, what we've been seeing them do set up recently, where Pep is playing 4 center backs along with Rodri, so essentially 5 center backs who can all control the ball, can all be there and build up play. Does he decide to play Kyle Walker to defend against Vinicius Jr.? Does he double him like he did with Martinelli and Saka in a couple meetings with Arsenal, where it's just like Vinicius Jr. is not going to beat us? It's going to have to be Benzema, which is obviously a very dangerous game to play. But it's interesting. I agree with you. I'm not sure who holds more possession. If Manchester City does and they stranglehold possession, I think that's bad news for Real Madrid. If you look at the 2 teams that they faced who can really hold possession against them this season and be dominant, it's Liverpool, who in that first leg went up 2-0. Real Madrid's low block was not good. It could have been 3. And then Real Madrid just scored 5 goals off of 8 shots and 1.6 XG, which is essentially what I believe they have to do here. And then they've played Barcelona 5 times, and on all but one match, Barcelona has created at least 2 expected goals and controlled more possession. So that's worrisome if you're Real Madrid. So do you come out, try to get more possession? Do you try to press high? Because Real Madrid's not a high pressing team. Like, they're a team that's pretty passive when they're out of possession. So if they're not going to press City and they're just going to let them waltz into their final third and then just try to be good in transition, I agree with you. It's a very, very interesting tactical battle. So for me right now, I am probably going to be sitting out this first leg. Might look to get in on it live if there's a certain scenario that pops up. But yeah, it's hard for me if Real Madrid doesn't control a lot of possession to see how they get through this leg unless they do what they did against Liverpool and is very, very efficient with their transitional opportunities. So now, with that being said, like we've already mentioned, there's the market aspect of this. If City gets down to plus 105 or even money, I have to fire on Real Madrid. That's just too low. There's no way I can ignore that. So that's how I'll be playing it. Other than that, I'm kind of with you. It's just waiting to see on Real Madrid. But other than that, I might have to pass this first leg.
Yeah, I think City's maybe marginally better than last year just because of Haaland's finishing ability in the center. But I don't think they're necessarily all that much better. And so I can't get to this number with Real Madrid. I power rated higher than they were last year. Exactly. Whether it's, the Camavinga in a left back role, which has shored up their defense a little bit, his athleticism. He doesn't really get forward. He tucks into the midfield a lot, which I think is the most important angle here, because if it is Rudiger and Alaba, which I'm expecting from Real Madrid's back line, you should see a lot of Camavinga there as like the extra defensive midfielder. What does that mean for somebody like a Phil Foden or Riyad Mahrez, who I'm expecting to start out wide? Where do they fit into this system? Do they try to run through them because both of them are very good at ball progression? Does Haaland run into that channel more? Do we see him go more wide? Because Camavinga is going to congest so much of the space up the middle and maybe take away that De Bruyne versus Haaland playing off of each other. So there's a lot of question marks. City is pretty well rested. They didn't play anybody over the weekend. They kind of rotated through most of the starters. So I'm not expecting really a fatigue thing. But Guardiola also did mention some concern about, like player fatigue, and said that, a lot of players came to him asking for a rest and that they were tired. And And like we saw this with Liverpool last year, it's a real thing. I don't care how good you are, how deep you are, playing across three fronts through May when it's been such a grueling year with the World Cup, it adds up. And it wouldn't shock me to see some signs of slippage from them going forward. But yeah, I can't get to the number either. I mean, my projection has City at plus 129. So for them to be plus 120, like City opened pick minus 130, like plus 145 money line. And I was like, yeah, it's about what I expected it to open. No real value in it for me. And then they took a ton of money. It got as low as I saw plus 105, plus 110 very briefly at a couple books. And like, that's just a lot of disrespect for Real Madrid. And I know they've been so lucky. And I know the minute I decide to bet on them in the Champions League is when they turn back into a pumpkin and all the regression and the luck runs out and they go bad. But are they really a half goal worse at home?
No,
they're not. And
they're not.
Like Leipzig, I mean, we just had this conversation. Leipzig was plus a half in the first leg at home against City, minus 110. It's like, 50%, 52.8% implied, 0.38. And now it's like minus 135.40 for Real Madrid at some places. And Real Madrid's clearly better than Leipzig. So this market respect for City has gotten really crazy to the point where I am also not going to be betting this one. But I will be looking for some possession props. Again, if Real Madrid gets like minus 120 plus a half, I will be betting them for sure. But yeah, it sucks to say because this is a betting pod, and we have two big matches to talk this week. I don't really have anything here. That's I'll bet it tomorrow. I would bet on Real Madrid.
Yeah, so make sure you just follow us in the Action Network app to see who we potentially play for this one. But hey, if you want a goal scorer one, I'll give you Jack Grealish at 6-1 to score. It was interesting the match against West Ham in the middle of the week because since West Ham was out without Soychek and without Declan Rice, they played a 5-4-1 and they essentially funneled everything to Jack Grealish's side, which, in some cases, like for a team like Real Madrid, who's probably going to play a 4-4-2 out of possession, that means the ball is going to be funneled out wide quite a bit in this type of situation. And if they're going to key in on Haaland, and what you've seen so many times from Grealish is because Ake is playing as a left center back type role, he's able to tuck inside and, allow defenders to commit to him, which creates more space on the wing for Grealish to get the ball and move it in going forward. So he could have a couple good opportunities coming in from the wing there to get some shots off. So at 6-1, I mean, there you go. One bet so far. Maybe we can get a Vinicius Jr. shot on target bet. I'm not sure what the odds are on that, but
yeah, I'm not seeing any shot total markets yet. We'll look to play a Real Madrid under in terms of shot totals, total shots.
Well, Real Madrid's actual shot total right now is under 11.5, and that's sitting at minus 105, and City's over under is 13.5 with the over sitting at minus 125. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I would look toward the under there on Real Madrid total shots because I do think that whether they're defending without the ball and in a lower block and waiting for transition, or whether they have possession, City is still not going to concede much in terms of space and shots. And so I would look to play the under on that.
Yeah,
I would think Real will get a few good chances, but won't necessarily be consistently putting pressure on the City goal because nobody does that to City.
Yeah,
I would definitely come in under that number.
Yeah, and
maybe that's a fun way to attack this.
Exactly, because even the 5-2 game against Liverpool, Real Madrid had 9 shots in that game. Like it wasn't like they just got off a ton of shots. So yeah, I agree, and that's kind of typically what's happened to them against Barcelona as well. They haven't had a giant number of shots against those type of teams. So I agree, but that's enough Real Madrid, Manchester City, because there is another semifinal tie, and one of these two teams is going to face Manchester City or Real Madrid, and it's a fun one. It's a Milan derby at the San Siro. AC Milan will be the home team for the first leg. They are sitting at plus 210. Inter Milan is plus 150 with the draw at plus 210 as well. Inter is at Bet365 is a minus 188 favorite to advance, while AC Milan is at plus 137. The big news going into this one is the status of Rafael Leao. He picked up an injury over the weekend against Lazio. We are unsure at the time of taping if he is going to play or not, which is very, very big for AC Milan. I have already bet Inter. If you follow me in the Action Network app, when the odds came out, Inter was a pretty significant underdog, which I thought was a little crazy considering that these two teams play at the exact same stadium. So I have already bet Inter pick at plus 105. But I still do see a little bit of value in Inter, but I'll let you get your thoughts in here first. What do you think about the second semifinal tie?
Yeah, where is Inter supposed to be worse than Milan?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean,
like Inter's old, and Milan has a much younger team, and they're more dynamic, I think, athletically. But like on no earth is Milan a better team, and they haven't been at all this year. And without Leao, who is dynamite in transition, just like an electric player, it feels like the window for Milan winning this match goes away, outside of course, just like single game variants, if he's not able to go. I mean, Leao this season, we talked about him. I mean, he had that really rough patch of form coming off the World Cup, and it coincided with when Milan was really bad. He's putting up 0.64 XG plus XA per 90, which is a very good forward production. 0.79 goals and assists per 90. So almost every other game, goal and assist. 19 goal contributions in 24 games. He's played a lot of minutes. And from a ball progression standpoint, that's really where he's made his biggest impact. And I think it's really going to be a problem. I mean, he's completed 52 passes into the penalty area in Serie A this year. Next best is Brahim Diaz at 36. So not only is he an elite passer, an elite dribbler. Most carries into the penalty area, 60. Next best on AC Milan is 16.
Mm-hmm.
And then carries in the final third, he has the most. Total progressive carries, he has the most. So you look at the difference between somebody like a Diaz and a Leao, which is essentially the two guys that have relied on most of the season for ball progression. Diaz just loses the ball a ton more. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's a real solution for that. I mean, Leao has almost as many attacking penalty area touches as Giroud in about the same number of minutes. So, without him, I don't really see this team being any good. And when he hasn't been on the pitch, they haven't been good. So all of these things make me worried about Milan. I already didn't like them. The market doesn't think he's playing for certain, the way that the line moved. So it sucks because I was excited for this tie. I still am, but this feels like Inter's the much better team. Inter still has the second best underlying numbers of all of the teams in Italy. They've had a really weird run of finishing for a lot of the season because Lautaro and Lukaku have been so inconsistent, but they've shown their abilities this year. And like you said, with the no travel, I gave the tiniest of home field advantages just for the fans because I do, it'll be a pro AC Milan fan crowd for the first game and more Inter heavy for the second. But it's going to be a lot of pretty even, I think, in the end. The way they sell the tickets, sure, but that there's plenty of Inter fans that will sneak in for the first leg and vice versa for the second. So, yeah, I can't get to it being anything close to a coin flip. So I'm going to take Inter to advance, minus 134. If you've followed me or followed us since the start of the knockouts, and we have that 34-1 that we're sitting on with Inter, so I'm riding that. Mm-hmm. But I think this is a pretty good matchup for Inter, especially if Leao can't go.
Yep.
They played 3 times this year, 2 wins for Inter, 1 win for Milan. XG was in favor of Inter in all 3.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Now, here's the argument that I think some people will make is say, well, if AC Milan was able to basically be the better team over 2 legs against Napoli, what makes you think they can't do the same to Inter? Well, Inter is a much different team than Napoli, and Inter can play really 2 different types of styles. With their 3-5-2, they're very, very good at attacking in wide areas, and they complete the most crosses of anybody in Serie A into the penalty area. And what they also do a great job of is they can be a great build up possession style team when they're facing smaller sides. And then when they face bigger teams, they can be really deadly in transition and really cause problems. Like I already mentioned, those wide areas. If you look at the two legs against Benfica, they allowed Benfica to control over 55% possession in both of those meetings. Still scored 4 goals. It was off of 2.6 expected, but that's the problem that AC Milan is going to run in here too, because in all 3 of those meetings, they were not able to disrupt build-up play like they did against Napoli in both ties. If you look at the first one, on all 3 of those meetings, their passes per defensive action was above 10. And even the second, the last meeting, which, take it with a grain of salt, Theo Hernandez did not play. It was during AC Milan's bad run of form. But Inter tilted the field at 77%. And AC Milan only had 1 penalty box shot and didn't have a shot until the 58th minute. So without Leao, we could be seeing similar type numbers to that there. And I mean, the other case for AC Milan here is that when they faced Napoli, Osimhen missed the first leg, and then Anguissa and Kim Min-jae missed the second leg. So they're very fortunate with injuries that way. Now they're going to be without Leao, who, like you already mentioned, is everything to their attack. Some of the other crazy numbers, he's averaging per 90 minutes 13.75 progressive passes or progressive carries and progressive passes received. So he is everything to their attack. And now they have to rely on a trio of Giroud, Benacer, and Diaz. Like, that's not good. So for me, I essentially took projection-wise, I took 20 cents off of my projection for AC Milan to account for the loss of Leao. And now I'm at Inter plus 102 for this first leg. So there's an Inter plus 150 out there. If you already haven't bet them, I would say that there is definitely value on that. There's just, like you mentioned, there's way too many tactical advantages, personnel advantages for Inter here. They've already been the better team 3 times against AC Milan. So I think it's Inter or nothing here in the first leg. All right. That'll do it for the Champions League semifinals. Let's move on to the Europa League semifinals. 2 teams we are very fond of here in the first of 2 semifinals. Juventus is hosting Sevilla. Juventus is a minus 134 home favorite. Sevilla sitting at 4-1. The draw sitting at plus 260. Juventus is minus 175 to advance. Sevilla at plus 125. I kind of like the over here. I think it's it's a little too low considering these 2 teams, but I'll let you get your thoughts in here first. What are you thinking between these 2 teams we are so fond of?
Yeah, from an edge point of view, total from a side perspective, I have nothing on this. I think the numbers are about right. Juventus is a better team, marginally better, and laying about 3/4 of a goal is about where I project it to be. But both of these teams are still super flawed defensively, and that's really what it comes down to for me, at least, is that Juventus has been getting healthier in their attack, and they've been putting up not great, but you can squint a little bit and see somewhat better production as an attack if you kind of look through some of the games where they've had a fully fit team. Put up almost 3 XG against Bologna, almost 2 against Lecce. Were competent in the match against Inter, the first leg, that is, of the semifinals. So they do beat Atalanta today, although there was some pretty good bounces that went their way in that one. I just really don't trust either of these defenses enough, though. And we were just talking off air about how concerning Juventus is, and you can get more into that. But Sevilla is still one of the 5 worst defenses in Spain, and
flawed.
as good as they've been at home at times this year, like, they have not traveled well either. We saw how good how well they played defensively against United, for example, even against PSV in the round prior. But when they've gone on the road, even at PSV, at United, they really were up under a lot of pressure, could not play through it, conceded a ton of chances. And then, in Spain, they're conceding over 1.5 per 90. So I think both teams are scoring over is the look here. It's gross because of how these teams tend to play, and they like to first leg, and you get the tax and everything. But this is a hold your nose over for me.
I agree. You can find over 2.5 at plus 130 out there, and I mean, Juventus's defensive numbers in Serie A are very, very concerning. I understand they've only conceded 28 goals. That's off of around 37 expected, so they've vastly overperformed, and they are an incredibly passive defense under Allegri. They are 17th in passes per defensive action. They're second to last in final third entries allowed. Like, I don't care how passive you are. That is awful for a team of Juventus's stature. 15th in crosses allowed in their penalty area, which is obviously huge against Sevilla because that's how Sevilla creates a lot of their chances. I don't care if Lopetegui's at Wolves right now. This is still the same Lopetegui style team. And Sevilla is top 5 at playing through pressure in La Liga. They're still top 5 in final third entries. They're 7th in progressive passes and dribbles. And it's a very slow build-up team that needs to have possession to be successful. Obviously, get the ball in wide areas and cross it in. 82 build-up attacks compared to just 33 direct attacks. If they're able to just go into Juventus' final third without much resistance, given the way they've been attacking lately and the improvements that we've seen there, 4.8 expected goals in their last 2 La Liga matches, they definitely can put the ball into the back of the net against a team that's very, very average at defending their penalty area. I mean, Juventus is still only 7th in non-penalty expected goals allowed and 10th in shots per 90. So this is not like an elite Juventus defense like we've seen in years past. And Juventus, I mean, they offensively, you mentioned it, like they have gotten better since the World Cup. They've created over 1 expected goal in every single match except for a match against Roma, a match against Inter, the first leg against Sporting, and then a match against Napoli. Those are all very, very good defensive teams. Sevilla is not that. So this is also one of those game state dependent type matches, I believe, because with both these teams very, very slow build-up style, a goal needs to go in for us to kick things into hyper gear. So like you mentioned, we're seeing the tax because it's the first leg, because it's 2 slow build-up teams. But everything we're looking at with underlying numbers, this game is screaming over, especially at a price of plus 130. And I do have around 2.7 goals projected for it. So I'll be on over 2.5 at plus 130. All right, let's move on to the second. This is a fun one. Roma hosting Leverkusen. Jose Mourinho's Roma is plus 110. Leverkusen a plus 275 road underdog with the draw at plus 230. This is minus 110 both ways for each team to advance. This is a very, very even encounter. I have future tickets on both these teams. Here's the problem is I do have Roma at minus 125 here, but Roma's form's been bad lately. Like, that was a bad performance against Inter over the weekend. Very, very concerning. And then you look at the other side. Well, Leverkusen had a lackluster showing against Union. Then they just lost at home to Cologne on Friday. So the form with both these teams is very concerning, is what's keeping me off of it. But what do you think for Xabi Alonso versus Jose Mourinho?
Yeah, this is one where I think these two teams are very similar, and thus I don't really want to kind of bet it where I have to lay a favorite. Right. And that's the case in the first leg with Roma, and it'll be the second case next week when we have this exact same conversation. When it comes to betting Leverkusen, there's different reasons for that. Leverkusen, for me, is a much better team when they get to profile as an underdog and they get to play in transition as much as possible. But do you ever get to play in transition against Roma?
No.
Like, they're one of the best teams in the world at defending their penalty area, and they don't really commit numbers forward, especially in the first leg of a 2-leg tie. It's just not, Josie's not going to do it, even if it means sacrificing win probability when he's at home in the first leg and probably needs a win. And so for that reason, I don't really trust Roma. So I'm a little concerned about, what we're going to see from Roma from an attacking perspective too, because look, would Jose be unhappy with the tie here if it went back 1-1 or 0-0 and went to Leverkusen and he got to play the underdog role, try to grind it out? You can pull some data on Roma and and I don't like to do this normally because it starts to get a little bit too into the weeds and like cutting out certain results and now you're getting into like a very kind of different sphere. But Roma has put up 2 XG per match in all Serie A matches against Milan, not against the other teams that they're competing with for the spots. So against not Milan, Napoli, Juve, Inter, and Lazio. That's 2 XG per match, right? Like I said, if you take out those games and you just look at those games specifically, they're at like 1.13. Now, some of that comes down to talent. Like you're playing better teams, so you're not going to create as many chances. But it feels to me like Roma, and the reason we love them in the tournament setting is because they're so good at this. When they play the teams that are comparable to them in talent level, they don't even really take any chances. They can't create anything. They commit no numbers forward. They hope for 1 or 2 openings. We saw what Roma can be when they played Feyenoord in the second leg. From playing from behind, created almost 3.5 XG and 1 going away. But in a first leg favorite, no thank you. Absolutely not. So this is a pass for me. Hopefully they get the early goal and then we can sit on it because I do not think Leverkusen matches up well playing from behind in this tie at all. So if we can just get a lead, I feel very confident in Roma.
You know what's crazy though?
We ride 23-1. I'm feeling good.
Yep,
I think it's
we ride that. We do
4-way coin flip. I really do. Like Sevilla's the worst team, clearly, but in a one-off, I don't think Roma is inherently worse or necessarily better than any of the teams that are still left. So we got to where we wanted. We just need the coins to flip our way and some chances. And Tammy, found the goal a couple weeks ago, so hopefully he's in the lineup. We'll see. Yeah. That's the other thing with Mourinho. It's like some days he just decides he's not going to play Belotti, Abraham, or Dybala, and you're just like, oh, great.
It starts like Pellegrini up top.
Now. Like they were flat against Inter yesterday, but I don't really care. Like they clearly are focused on the Europa League here. So
right, and to your point about Roma playing up to better competition against every single team that's essentially above them right now, no team has created over 1 expected goal against them in Serie A. Like that's how good they are defensively.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But
they've conceded some goals. They've been unlucky, and like Patricio's kind of mid, but they're the best. They're the best box defending team in European top 5 leagues. They're better than City.
They are better than City. Like it's. Yeah. I think I mentioned.
I mean, they don't have as much of the ball, and so they whatever.
Right. But they have taken over Mallorca as the best final third box entry conversion rate allowed team in Europe's top 5 leagues. I mean, they're under 20%. Like that's an insane number to think about. But yeah, no, it's tough because now Xabi Alonso and Leverkusen, I've mentioned them before when they played Union, is what he's done is he's changed them into kind of a Jose Mourinho-esque type team in Germany as well. Like no longer is Leverkusen this high pressing, full throttle tilt type team. They're a very passive team now as well that likes to play a low block. And like you mentioned, loves to play in transition. So this is, again, going to be a very game state dependent type tie of how you bet it. So, if this thing is a draw, if it's 1-1 or 0-0, well, Leverkusen is probably going to be plus 110 at home in the second leg. And we're going to come back here and we're probably going to have the exact same conversation. But it will be interesting if either team is ahead and which team's got to come from behind. So it'll be interesting, but it's a pass for both of us on that. So,
I mean, I would personally bet Roma to advance if you don't have a ticket. I trust them more. Would too. They're better defensively in a tie that I don't think will have a ton in it. I trust them better. I think both goalkeepers can be questionable at times. Hrdesky playing out from the back is always a nightmare. Patricio just doesn't do that, so that takes part of the issue out. But yeah, I would give the slightest of leans to Roma if you're looking to bet a 2 advance ticket, but like don't bet them plus 110, bet them to advance. It's a much better bet. Because I think there's way more scenarios where Roma doesn't win and advances than there are where they win and then don't win this match and then don't advance next week at Leverkusen.
Exactly. Yeah. I have Roma at minus 147 to advance out of this tie against Leverkusen.
You love Roma too much though.
It's a little too much, and I got to go in and account for a little bit of only Leverkusen under Xabi Alonso. So that number will probably come down to around I guess, only accounting for what Xabi Alonso has. Because, Leverkusen has been allowing under 1 expected goal per 90 with him in charge. So again, very, very interesting tie here. So, but yeah, I agree with you. If you're going to bet something, bet Roma to advance. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Wondergoal. Thank you all for listening. We will be back on Thursday morning for your weekend preview of the Premier League and across Europe. Until then, for Anthony Dabundo, I'm BJ Cunningham. Thank you again to our sponsor, Bet365, and good luck with your Champions League and Europa League bets this week. We'll see you on Thursday morning.